Hello and welcome to Barbara's Podcast. This is the show for women, all about health, nutrition, and wellness. It's the show that will empower you and inspire you to create a healthier lifestyle.
Hello and welcome. I'm Barbara Carafocus, and today I'd like to introduce Dr. Colin Zhu, who is an osteopath, trained chef, and a health coach. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you so much for having me. I don't know what time it is over there, but good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm sure one of those will hit.
Definitely. Well, what a lovely blend of fields. I think it's exactly what the world needs. So can you tell us more about your journey from becoming an osteopath, a chef, and a nutrition expert?
Yeah, for sure. So my journey started, I can't really talk about my journey without talking about my mother. She's a traditional Chinese medical doctor. And, growing up in her household, working in and out of her office, you learn a lot about, preventative care, wellness, how to look at the person or patient in a very holistic fashion.
Yeah.
And, I didn't come from a long line of medical doctors. So my perspective has always been skewed towards, just optimizing wellness, just being as preventative as possible. And so when you grow up and you work and study under the auspices of the American healthcare system, you soon realize really, really quickly that, the best way I can put it is that it's a disease management system. It's a system of, it's a reactive system as opposed to a proactive system. As opposed to other forms of, medical modalities like acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, things like that. It's very proactive. It's very preventative. It looks at, the whole person. And so I went into school, just wanting to, go towards osteopathic medicine. And in osteopathic medicine in America, we're considered medical doctors. Osteopath outside of America is more considered like bone setters or chiropractic. So I wanted to make sure we, have that on the same page. So I'm the same as an MD, even though my initials are DO. And so when I went to school and when I followed a lot of my mentors and predecessors, anybody that came through our doors, whether it's a reason for visit of a cough or low back pain, they always had some sort of chronic lifestyle risk factor or, chronic disease attached to them, whether it's high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, the list goes on. And so long story short, I made a lot of detours because my school at the time, I was very ill prepared. So I went to culinary school, a health supportive plant-based culinary school. I got certified in health coaching. And then using all these different types of, learnings and experiences, I then enhanced, my residency training. So I went into general practice. And then after which, when I finally graduated, I publicly spoke. I held demonstrations. I spoke at conferences, done workshops. During COVID, did a lot of more virtual talks and, guest spotting on, podcasts like this. So that's been a large part of my work thus far.
So how did you get interested in a plant-based diet? What led you to, and it wasn't something else like the paleo or keto, or there's all these, different
fads and trends. Yeah. Well, growing up, I was very lucky to have both of my parents cook. So I was very familiar in and out of the kitchen. And we're of Chinese descent. I'm a first generation immigrant child. And so, the Chinese cuisine, the perspective on it is really balanced. So you're constantly seeking harmony and balance. And so you have equal parts of every food group, so from vegetables to meats and seafood and grains, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about balance.
Can I interrupt you there? Does the macrobiotic diet come into something like similar to that, or not at all?
No. Macrobiotic diet is different. That's more of the, it's different from the Japanese perspective, but it's not. It's it doesn't look at nutrition specifically. It's more about just harmony, because the Chinese is all about balance and harmony, the
Yes.
yin and yang and all that stuff. So not specifically in terms of nutrition per se. So
Okay.
yeah. So from there, I, went into school and, I just started learning from different types of predecessors. So I followed integrative medicine, I followed functional medicine, I followed naturopathic medicine, alternative, complementary, different types of modalities.
Yeah.
I stopped drinking dairy in 2009. And then when I started learning more about a plant-based diet, I started, learning more about the research. It wasn't really until I started training for my first marathon. And up until completing the race, I was having different types of joint pains, bloating sensations, things like that. And then I started reading about how the associations of a plant-based diet with sports performance and recovery, how that affected each other. And then I just went for it. And after my race, I realized that my performance and recovery was a lot better. And
Yeah.
so I just stuck with it. And being a family practitioner, being a general medicine doctor, you're looked at, I always perceived it as a role model. I always perceived it as someone that's a leader in the community. So I had to be accountable. I had to preach what I, preach what I
Definitely.
practice and walk my talk. So I just stuck with it and I felt fine. I felt great. It wasn't, I didn't have a personal health scare or concern to make me feel like a huge dramatic shift. It wasn't like that. I know for others it was. And so for me, I just took it upon myself to stick with it. And so I've been whole food plant-based for 8 years now, 9 years now. And yeah, it's been great.
So what sort of foods do you include in a plant-based diet? Is it more so, do you add in a little bit of fish, or is it um, more so vegan? So do you avoid eggs? And, because plant-based can mean a lot of things, in a sense, like could be predominantly plant-based, but you've got 10% of foods that you add in, or, so.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So there's a difference between vegetarian, vegan, and whole food plant-based. Vegetarian is, you're kind of predominantly eating a lot of plants and you're selecting different types of animal food. So you could be an ovo vegetarian, which you're eating eggs. You can be a lacto vegetarian where you're just selecting dairy. You could be a pescatarian where you're just selecting seafood.
Yeah.
Vegan is you're predominantly avoiding, I would say 100% avoiding animals. So
Yes.
that means ingesting animals. And if you are a little bit more of an extreme vegan, or strict vegan, I would say, you're also not using animal products, on your body, and you're
Yeah.
not wearing animal products, And a lot of vegans, it started off being more ethical, in terms
Yeah.
of animal welfare, in terms of the planet. But I don't choose the words vegan because it tells me what you avoid. It doesn't tell me what you actually eat. So
Yeah.
you can eat a Twinkie or, processed food, a vegan junk food all day long and call yourself a vegan, but that's not the most helpful, right?
Fine.
And so I choose, we use whole food plant-based because, whole food plant-based is defining in the name. So you're predominantly eating plant foods in its whole intact nature, right? So how Mother Nature intended it to, and less of how, man has manipulated it in terms of processing, in terms of refining it, breaking it down, stripping away, adding things in. So a lot less processed. So you're eating, to answer your question, you're eating predominantly dark leafy greens, starchy vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, legumes. You're eating whole grains, and you're eating minimally processed foods, including oils, and hardly anything animal sourced.
Oh, excellent. So have you come up with a system to it? I've seen the THR5 formula, and what can you tell us a little bit about that and how it encompasses the pillars of food as medicine or fitness, relationships? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So when I started the Chef Doc in 2017, the purpose of it was when I was working as a general doctor and I was in outpatient medicine, I'm working in clinics and offices, things like that. I
Yeah.
fell in love with really having that rapport and relationship one-on-one with my patient. However, over time, under the auspices of the American healthcare system, it's very systematic, and you don't get a lot of time with the patient. And because of the fact that a lot of my peers and colleagues don't get enough knowledge, in your school and training, they're less confident in terms of dispensing nutritional, dietary, and lifestyle related types of counseling. All right. And so because of that, I just found it to be very ineffective and very inefficient when for the American, the top 10 causes of, death for American citizens, the top seven are related and associated heavily with diet and lifestyle, means, top two being heart disease and cancer. And so, I just decided that I needed to define a different way. I created the Chef Doc as a wellness platform for education, for resources that are vetted out, and just a different way of communicating with my audiences far and wide that I normally wouldn't cross paths with. Since then, in 2017, I wrote a book.
Yeah.
I hosted a podcast. I created a masterclass series, which is called the Thrive Formula.
Yes.
And the last thing we created is an app, a smartphone app, which we launched 2 months ago. And pretty much you can find everything under that app. So the Thrive Formula I created during the pandemic, and it's based off of 5 pillars, based off of how I perceive one to thrive. And so over time, I personally and professionally has been able to thrive. And for me, it's just finding a lot of joy, finding a sense of purpose, finding a lot of meaning in life. And so, it's way more for me, what I felt enriching for my life instead of what I call, in the book that I wrote, the Thrive Formula, the Thrive Medicine book,
Yeah.
the default life. And what I mean by that is, we're born, you're raised, you go to school, you go to work, you have a family, and you work until retirement and you perish. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I just felt that the default life was, what society has created, was very singular, very linear. And I wanted to do more with that. So the Thrive Formula, which is a different iteration, is based off of 5 pillars. So, food is medicine, functional fitness, resilience, community, and relationships. And so I chose these 5 pillars as a way of creating a solid foundation for someone to, get more out of life. And so in this masterclass series, I interviewed 50 plus speakers from medicine, from the dietetics, from coaching, different types of passionate entrepreneurs, really gathering different types of insights, tips, and knowledge and wisdom to help my audience, learn.
Yeah. Well, it's very important, I think, for someone to live a fulfilled and content life. I think it's very important that all these pillars are in some sort of balance. For example, if someone works 14 hours a day and doesn't have a relationship with their family, or they ignore their what they eat, or the exercise that they do, it creates an imbalance, whether mentally, physically, and well, whether you want to use the word spiritually, or the zest for life or a passion for life. I think that starts dimming after a while when you lead a certain lifestyle.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
foods that you eat do affect your mood and do affect your energy. So
Yeah, for
it
sure.
they all have a certain relationship with each other.
Yeah, it never escaped me the fact that the basic pillars of lifestyle are all interconnected.
Yeah.
It never escaped me that the physical body, physical health is the same as is just as important as the emotional and mental health. So they're all connected. So for me, I've just developed a very keen sense of how things connect with each other and looking at, the big picture. And, when you have different puzzle pieces, my job is really connecting it for the individual. And on a high level, it's really about how the way we live our lives as human beings, how that connects to the broader community, in terms of your own community locally, but also more broadly in terms of planetary health, global sustainability. We live in a very critical decade as a species. And so, it's important to talk about what goes into our system, but it's also important to look at the system at large and how that influences each other and vice versa.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% there. I label it conscious living, with a certain conscience. So that what you eat and how it affects, the planet at large, the environment, whether it's got pesticides or how it's been grown, or whether they've had to cut part of the rainforest to grow that food, So can you, as a medical professional, how do you integrate the plant-based nutrition and lifestyle medicine into your practice to help patients achieve lasting health?
It's a very good question. So I do this a lot through education. And so, I, offer my services in various different ways. So I work from home. So I do a lot of telemedicine, telecoaching. I could see a lot, pretty much from all over the country in America. I also do a lot of coaching. I can do it, internationally as well. And you offer lifestyle medicine through counseling, through coaching. And so it's really about, understanding the core of what a person is struggling with and just meeting them where they're at. And this includes the mental, emotional, and physical body as well. And on a telemedicine aspect, we look at, laboratory, blood work. We do this very comprehensively. And then, a lot of times we are not even prescribing medications, we're actually de-prescribing medications because the whole food plant-based nutrition and the lifestyle that goes with it is very, very impactful. And, it's, the whole food plant-based, lifestyle since the early 90s, it's the only diet shown to reverse heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and early stages of prostate cancer. And so a lot of times patients come to us, they come to me for, just tweaking a vegan lifestyle, tweaking, maybe transitioning, being more curious in terms of incorporating, more plants into their lifestyle. And a lot of them want to get off of medications. They want to get off of their blood pressure medications. They want to get off of their diabetic, their cholesterol medications. They want to lose weight. Coaching, I go through 6-month coaching, programs with, a set client. And, the Chef Doc, I've created a whole platform of video, audio, different types of, educational content for people who are more self-motivated. They just want to consume things differently and learn things differently. And so I've created, various different content for them to learn from. And so there's many different ways to incorporate lifestyle medicine. That's just my version of doing it. So, but because it's such an amazing profession, there's just so many different ways. It's unlimited in terms of how you want to incorporate it.
Yeah. Well, that sounds very good that it's all on, that you offer so much information to keep people, you offer the education in a sense, the information at hand. Because I find quite a lot of the time someone might change their habits for a while and then go back to their old eating style. So I think 6 months is a really good time to coach someone through that.
Yeah.
You got any experience with trying to keep someone on track rather when they, if they go off
the bandwagon?
Off the bandwagon, yeah.
Everybody's different and everyone falls in and out of the bandwagon for different reasons. Sometimes it's lack of, family support. They don't have support from their spouse. They don't have support from their partner. Sometimes it's an organization, issue. And sometimes it's just, a lot of times it's just preparation, in terms of food as medicine, it's more meal prep than the actual cooking. Sometimes they are not cooking as much. So it's really about just being prepared enough. Time does make a difference. They say that, really having a positive behavior change starts anywhere from like 21 days to like 66 days. And so, it's really finding that sweet spot, but still continuing that process. We don't make the gains of, having good muscle build, losing weight by going to the gym, just one day, right? You have to put in the time. The muscle physiology needs to understand what you're doing. A lot of times, it's about, the gains and recovery, that's from a physical, perspective. In terms of, a more nutritional dietary lifestyle perspective, your body needs to, change. Your body needs to change in terms of your taste buds, like tapering someone off of, pop or soda, Coca-Cola or Pepsi takes time, because your taste buds are adapted to just really, really high, doses of sugar. It takes time for people to just, understand what water tastes like. You know what I'm saying? It takes time for your microbiome, to change from having more, a gut bacteria that is, producing negative effects to, from eating more animal sources to positive effects, that takes time as well. So, it just takes time. And in a world where you're predominantly relying on convenience, easy access to poor and low quality foods, and you're, set up, for failure in terms of living a sedentary lifestyle, you have to fight that, you know what I'm saying? So it takes time, there is no quick fixes, there's no shortcuts. It just takes time, motivation, discipline, a very good support system. And if you're self-motivated, great. And if you need guidance, then it's important to seek out a healthcare professional, a coach, a dietitian, so don't be afraid to ask for help.
I think support's very important. It's very important when you're trying to achieve some lifestyle changes, that you do need the support from your family or your friends or your environment. And if not, the mental aspect of it too, that some people do need that extra help and support with that, to factor that in as well. Because sometimes it depends how much you've fallen off your bandwagon, really, whether someone's hit rock bottom or where they are up on the ladder that they've got to climb back up again.
For sure.
Quite often. Yeah.
Yes, we can't do things, individually. We definitely, need to do things together. So that's super, super important.
Well, would you have a couple of tips that you could share if someone wanted to, perhaps, 3 lifestyle tips or changes steps that they could do to start or set off onto a path of better health and well-being?
Yeah, it depends on where you're at and what you're looking for, So if you're looking to, just, I don't feel like we should wait to make changes in our health by the new year, whenever you have like New Year resolutions and things like that. You could, every single day is a new day. And so it just depends on what you want to change for yourself. My general tips would be, focus on progress and not perfection. Just do small steps every single day. There's a lot of great books out there in terms of, just focus on the small wins, the small steps, and the progress, as opposed to, climbing Mount Everest. Look for the anthills. Just do small steps. And when you do that enough, when you go enough time, you will see the changes. I would say, if you are not as self-motivating, to have an accountability partner. have someone with you. If running is not your thing, then go for a walk. The most cost effective thing is to go for a walk, have someone walk with you. Be part of a community. It's important to engage and be involved and inject yourself as part of a community. When you have peers that are like-minded, you have a higher chance of success. For example, if I have a patient that wants to quit smoking, but their family and friends are mostly smokers, their rate of success is not going to be that high. So it's very, very important to be part of a community that is like-minded, that, has the same mutual interest as you. Okay. Having a well-prepared kitchen is very, very important. Taking out poor quality junk food, poor quality foods, from your pantry, your fridge or freezer, anything on your countertops, throwing that away is very important, so you're not looking at that constantly and, feeling the urge to reach out for it. Okay. Sleeping 7 to 8 hours a day, going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, and just avoiding risky things, not smoking. I would advocate not even drinking. I know Mediterranean, lifestyle, Mediterranean diet, there's a
little
lot.
bit of red wine.
Yeah, but you'll be surprised if you look at the studies, it's actually negated by the actual alcohol. You might as well just eat grapes.
Especially for women, I think
Yeah.
it's worse rather than men. I've read the studies as well.
Yeah, it's actually just negated by the alcohol, so you might as well just eat grapes.
Yeah.
It's just incorporating a little bit of every single lifestyle, every single pillar in your comprehensive lifestyle approach. There is no one size fits all, and it's really about what resonates with you, what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, what brings you contentment, and sticking with that. If you don't enjoy it, less likely you're going to continue with it, and it's not sustainable. And then the other thing I would add is, as you're making these individual choices, we know from the pandemic, we make a choice, don't make a choice, it affects, and it has a ripple effect, to the person next to you, to the person across the world. And so being very, very mindful of how your individual choices affect someone else, even someone that you don't know. And that's also important as well.
So in closing, where could people reach out to you, if you'd like to share a website or your socials?
Yeah, I would probably say the easiest is just going to my website. To make it simple for people is to go to thechefdoc.app, app. So thechefdoc, THECHEFDOC. And from there, you can find all my links to social media, my links to YouTube. There's a lot of great, free content on YouTube. My links to my book, podcast, my masterclass series. And then, if you're looking to, just elevate, more with more programming, and, you like using your app, we do have an app, and you can download it on your Apple Store or your Google Play Store. And and if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. If you have any questions about, coaching, if you need more guidance, needing more hand-holding, we have services for that. And, I definitely, advocate people to, understand that health is wealth, and time is very, very precious. We can't recoup time. You can always make more money, but you can't recoup time. So prioritizing what you want to do with your time on earth is very, very important.
Well, it was lovely having you on the podcast. Thank you for sharing so much with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me, Barbara.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to Barbara's podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter or e-courses. Celebrate life, and see you at the next episode.